This is Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Mitch LaFon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Joining me on the phone this time from the band Dirty Honey, it is singer Marc LaBelle, who happens to be a great, great hockey fan. So yes, we talk music, but we also talk NHL. Unfortunately, he roots for the wrong team, but we'll get to that later. Dirty Honey is a band I got to see in late July at Heavy Montreal, and everybody says, you know what? They have a great new EP. The Dirty Honey EP came out in early 2019, but you got to see them live. You got to see them live. That's where you'll get it. And you know what? Yeah, that's where you'll get it. The album or the EP is great, but live, man, this band just tears it up. Absolutely fantastic. They are expected to be, quote unquote, the next big thing, and I really don't see any reason why they wouldn't be. They deliver the goods, as Judas Priest would say. Now, the other thing I want to quickly touch upon is I would love to bring you more new bands, because people are always like, oh, well, you talk about older bands from the 70s or the 80s, and there's no voice for the new bands. And it's like, well, yeah, you're right. There sort of is no voice for new bands, because I'm telling you, and the numbers for this show will bear it out probably. Unfortunately, what happens is when you feature a new band, your numbers on your episodes drop. And I'm not talking by 10 people or 100 people. I'm talking by 1,000. Thousands less downloads and listens. And it's unfortunate. So I know a lot of us like to talk the talk, but not many of us walk the walk. So in the next couple of weeks here, I'm going to bring you a couple of new bands, and hopefully listeners will take the time to listen. And I won't see this huge catastrophic fall off in numbers, because I think it is essential that we support rock. Not just 70s rock, not just 80s rock, but all rock, because we need to have that next generation move forward. So for those of you that write me and say, well, you should feature more new rock, okay, well, here we are. We're going to do it this month. But please, tune in and listen. Let's keep the numbers up. Let's keep it going. Talk the talk, but walk the walk. And a lot of new bands will write me and say, hey, can I be on your show? And sometimes I have to turn them away because I just know what's going to happen. So let's not make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let us not make that a truth. Let us have the guys from Kiss and Metallica and Slash and whoever on the show, but every so often allow me to have a new artist and support it. Just keep listening. That's all I'm asking, and that's all the new artist needs, is that you just give it a chance. So give Dirty Honey a chance. Listen to what Marc has to say. He's very, very lucid. He speaks great. So stay with me and listen to the whole thing, and enjoy that. And you know what? Let's just get right into this. Here is from Dirty Honey, singer Marc LaBelle. We are speaking with a Dirty Honey singer, Marc LaBelle. Marc, an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. How are you?
You too. Nice meeting you finally in Montreal.
Yeah. How was your Heavy Montreal experience, by the way?
It was awesome. Honestly, we I don't think we could have had a better first experience in Canada, to be honest. So it was a really good welcome, and the show was great. We felt great about how we played, and I think the audience really enjoyed it too. So it was a great experience. The festival was awesome. The food was great. And Canadians are always nice too, so that helps.
It helps that we have that nice thing going. So talk to me. And by the way, I'll add this. I've been following all the reports coming out of Heavy Montreal from fans and other media after. And I saw in French and in English, La découverte de la fin de semaine, the discovery of the weekend, Dirty Honey, and the name kept coming back.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Kept coming over and over and over again. Even a buddy of mine, Mark Striegel, who works with, what's his podcast? Talking Rock or Talking Metal. He was like, man, this is like the greatest band I saw this weekend. What a great discovery. One of many who said that. And yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about being a discovery and getting discovered. How difficult is it in this day and age, or how easy? I mean, it doesn't have to be negative. Is it to be discovered and become, not just a bar band playing somewhere, but getting to that next level? How do you make it in today's world?
Honestly, it's like a lot of hard work if you're not willing to do the work. If I feel like there's a lot of people that want to be, rock stars or want to be famous more than anything today without actually doing any work. We're living in this sort of Kardashian, social environment that people think they can get famous for no reason, which is fine. I mean, it's totally possible, but, a lot of people that I appreciate in entertainment are artists, and they're really hardworking artists, from actors to musicians to radio personalities, and athletics too. It certainly falls into, and, I think that's the first and foremost thing. Like, you can want something, but if you're not willing to put the hard work in, then, you may get extremely lucky, but at the end of the day, you're not going to last very long. So, what it really came down to for us was songwriting. And, we were a really great cover band, and we were kicking ass all over, LA, playing AC/DC and Aerosmith and Soundgarden covers in bars. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be an original band that's successful, you got to have really good songs. So that's where we shifted our focus, and we, really put our money where our mouth was, and flew out to Australia to make a record with a great producer, so that sort of turned it all around for us.
Well, okay, so talk to me a little bit about the craft of songwriting, because you look at some of the greatest songwriters in the history, and I include some of the Canadians like Jim Vallance and stuff, but how do you sort of craft, how do you go from playing AC/DC covers to knowing that you have a song that is written and that is good enough? Is it lyrical first? Is it the music first? How do you sort of compose?
We go about it a couple different ways. I think everybody does a little bit of something, whether it's, riff writing or lyrical writing or melody writing on their own. And really, when you have a good start, whether it's a riff or melody, that's when it becomes something that everybody sort of wants to work on. Like When I'm Gone, for instance, was just a riff for a long time and kind of a verse, and we didn't really have the chorus that we always had. It took a lot of time, sussing it out in the studio and on my own, like a lot of late nights trying to find like the perfect melody to fit with the rest of the song. But then Heartbreaker was a riff that Justin wrote, and I just knew he had this great riff, and I wanted to expand on it for a long time, and probably wrote a couple different versions of that song before we landed on the one that it is now. And it went through various tempo changes and stuff. There's a little bit of experimenting with it, but the song that it wound up being actually came very quickly, but there was, maybe a year and a half of work to get to that, 10 minutes of like inspiration that pulled it all together,
Yeah, and it worked because my wife is a very tough critic, and I was playing it for her earlier today, and she's like, "Hey, I like that song." So yeah. If you get the Susan thumb up, you're on solid ground. But let me talk to you about the approach to getting music out there. 2018, you start off with the single "Fire Away," and then of course we get over to the Dirty Honey EP. Talk to me about that. Why not straight out of the box? Here's 12 songs. Here's our album. Let's go for it. Let's talk about the sort of slow burn and sort of creating a buzz and creating an anticipation.
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot. The last, decade or two even. I honestly thought like Greta did a really nice job, like sort of, giving you a little taste and then giving you a little more, 6 months down the line, and then dropping an album. But I don't necessarily subscribe to, albums like being a necessary thing. I may or may not be alone in that opinion in the band, but I actually love the sort of like 5-song idea more frequently being released than one album every 1 or 2 years. But then I also think back, and it's like I love Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I love the Stones' Goat's Head Soup and Exile on Main Street, and Toys in the Attic is my favorite record. So I'm very conflicted, but it's like I want people to hear the music at the end of the day and not feel overwhelmed by having to listen to an hour or more of music at once. Yeah, I don't know. We're all very opinionated when it comes to how much to release and at what time, but certainly putting out more is on our almost immediate agenda in the near future here.
And by the way, you are right. Aerosmith Toys in the Attic is their best record, regardless of people.
I would agree.
I know people say Rocks, but Rocks doesn't have Sweet Emotion or Walk This Way, so back off.
Slash would disagree with us, but
I know.
Yeah, I'm a big Toys in the Attic fan.
It's great. So, okay, so now that you say you want to put out more music at a rapid pace, do we see the next sort of new EP in 6 months, or has that plan been sort of sidetracked because of the touring?
6 months or less, I would think. I mean, geez, yeah, I would hope so. I think we're going to be off most of December, so I think that's going to be a big. We've already started pre-production for the next batch, whatever that's going to be, and it's just a matter of carving out a couple weeks to, either go to Australia or go to whatever studio. We typically like to get out of LA to record, just to be away from any possible distractions. And our producer that we did this one with is in Australia, and we loved it. So, it's not the easiest thing to fly out there and spend a few weeks when you've got so much going on, but, we'll make it a priority to deliver another great product sooner than later, for sure.
Okay, so talk to me about your recording process in terms of getting in the studio, because I speak to a lot of artists who say, well, I live in LA and he lives in Florida, and we send ourselves the tracks, and I'll send him a vocal and he'll send me back a guitar thing. Is it important for you to be all in the studio and all focused on this?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a big sticking point for us. It's just like all the records we loved, like Toys in the Attic would be a good example. Rocks would be one. Appetite for Destruction. Pretty much everything, like early from the Black Crowes, the Zeppelin stuff. Like they were all in a room together, cutting together, at least tracking a performance of the song, and then you expand upon that, whether it's you throw a guitar solo on there or maybe you do some vocal harmonies or something, but the base of the track is very raw. It's pretty much a live performance, and you're trying to capture a performance rather than make the perfect performance, if that makes sense, right? You want those.
It makes perfect sense. Yes, and I'll tell you, Alan Niven, who sometimes co-hosts a show with me and used to manage Guns N' Roses, said that there is a perfection in the imperfection. And
without a doubt.
Right? And that, okay, so let's just explore that for a second. So if you have a bum note or a vocal that's a little thing, but it has, it's in the zone, it has a groove, it has spirit, whatever the word I'm looking for right now. Do you keep it or do you throw it out? Because we're so auto-tuned and pitch-corrected to death that everything is stale. Let's.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to avoid, and I think it comes off that way. Like it feels like the record really feels alive. Like trust me, I had a lot of like issues with, just the way it sounded. I gave the producer hell, getting this from A to B and just saying like, I don't know, like I don't love the way this sounds or that sounds. And he was like, just trust me. He's like, because he was around when the Black Crowes did their records, and he was like, when we put that stuff out, man, like everybody just thought it sounded like demos. Didn't have any production, and he's just like, that's rock and roll, like same with Guns N' Roses. Like there's not really production on there. So Heartbreaker. I feel like I could sing that way better now after doing it 100 times since leaving the studio, and same with When I'm Gone and all the tunes. But like, there's a certain human element to recordings that, you know, make it feel a certain way, you know, like those records do that we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, if you look back to the early Black Sabbath or any of those early bands where they had to do it like in 12 days,
yeah,
there are mistakes everywhere. But that's the charm. Right? We need the charm. Talk to me a little bit about
like those big budgets. You know, Appetite for Destruction costs. I think I saw an article like it was like $370,000, but I think time, like in the studio to music, can sometimes do what money does to comedy. Like they say, money ruins comedy, like especially for movies. And it's just you need that like pressure of your studio time being over to be able to. It forces you to walk away from your performance. You know what I mean? Instead of sitting there and laboring over like the perfect snare hit or something, or the perfect vocal take, like you have to be pushed out.
Oh, I agree. And the most successful,
and it's like you said, perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if the audio cut out but when I've spoken to a lot of the successful artists, they always say that you need to go in there prepared, so do your rehearsals or whatever, and then get in the studio and then just knock it out, and that's how you capture energy or lightning in a bottle. Since we're speaking of Montreal, you are coming back here on October 1st as part of the Skillet Alter Bridge tour. Talk to me a little bit about that tour. I happened to see Skillet at Heavy Montreal for the first time ever, and that guy, John Cooper, first of all, a nicer guy you could not meet. I mean, absolute sweetheart. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm saying it. Absolute sweetheart. And I saw their set. Holy mackerel! So this is going to be a triple bill of just holy mackerel all night. Talk to me a little bit about that tour and some of the other tours you've opened up for the Who. You've done some Slash dates. You got a good touring schedule.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. We're obviously Alter Bridge is Miles Kennedy's band. So we were with him last night in Toronto, and he's very nice too, very gracious. And he can sing like he doesn't sing a bad note ever, which is crazy. And then we're really pumped to go out with Skillet for the first time. They've got a great following, and they're a great band. We were with them at Impact Music Festival in Bangor, Maine. Yeah. In Montreal. I haven't met them yet, but
I'm losing a little bit of your audio. I don't know if you can talk a little louder.
Oh, am I
there we
cutting
go.
out on you?
You were cutting out big time, yeah. But yeah, so
oh no. Yeah, I was just saying we got to see Skillet at Impact Festival in Bangor, Maine, for the first time. And then we saw them obviously in Montreal, just got to catch a little of their set, but we haven't met those guys yet, but I'm sure we'll cross paths, before the tour starts again.
Yeah, and you'll love the lead guy, John. He's great.
Yeah, I've heard good things, and obviously, being out with Slash is great, and opening for the Who was like nothing else we've ever done. I mean, that was the first and only arena show that we've done, and it was like, it blew away all my expectations. So,
well, okay, let me ask you just quickly about the Who. Do you learn anything from that? Because there's playing covers in a bar, there's opening for Slash, and then there's seeing sort of that big arena or even stadium show with somebody like the Who. And the big shows they run on a different level. They run on a different energy, and that's not to insult anybody. It's just a different beast. Do you stop and sort of poke around and say, okay, I got to remember that do you learn anything from a gig like that?
I think anybody on the sort of level that we've been, lucky enough to be on from Slash and the Who, and God, I mean, the list has been crazy, but there's a professionalism to anybody that's been doing it for that long, right? There's, Pete Townsend likes his monitor mix a certain way. He has a certain regimen that he follows. Same with Roger Daltrey and Miles Kennedy, especially singers. Like they have they're doing vocal warm-ups all the time. They're taking care of their voice. They're not, they're not snorting cocaine and like getting crazy after the gigs. Like if there's another gig the following night, they're taking care of themselves now, and that's just certainly something I've picked up on in my few short years here. But I even got to see like Rod Stewart in studio like years ago, doing vocal warm-ups, before he went and recorded. And I was just like, if that's what this guy is doing at 65, 70 years old, then, it's certainly not above me to do it as well if I want to take care of this self and have like longevity in this industry. So that's what I've been taking away from it more than anything. And the biggest thing you see too is the passion. Like everybody still loves performing. So it's nice to see, honestly.
Oh, it's great to see. You mentioned the Black Crowes before, and as I listened to Dirty Honey, and as I saw you at Heavy Montreal, and hoping to see you in October again, I sensed the band had some of that Black Crowes energy, and then I listened to some other stuff, and you hear some of the Zeppelin energy, and then you look over and you go, well, it's a little bit like Buck Cherry too. Where do you sort of see your sound, and how do you sort of see the sound evolving? Because you're none of those bands, but you're a little bit of those bands as well. How do you sort of see Dirty Honey establishing its sound?
I think, like the four of us have, we definitely have a love of rock and roll. Everybody loves Zeppelin, AC/DC, the Stones, Aerosmith, the Black Crowes, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots. We all have common interests, but there's also like the favorites seem to differ. Like the true favorite, like mine is Aerosmith. Corey's, I would say, is probably like Van Halen. John is a big Queen, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses guy. Justin is a huge Guns N' Roses fan. So I think, all those influences sort of poke out, but when they're put into the context of a band, they're not any one thing. So it becomes something fresh, which I think is cool. And I think over time, like Guns N' Roses, when Guns N' Roses came out, they were compared to a lot of people too. And, now it's just become this identifiable sound that is unmistakable, 20, 30 years later. So I think you just need a little time and some constant like familiarity with an audience to be identifiable forever as Dirty Honey,
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I'll remind the folks the Dirty Honey EP is available now, and I'll ask you just a couple more questions. It has been said that rock is dead, which I completely don't believe. I think that's the most stupid thing, quite frankly, to say. Yeah. But I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, they said jazz was dead back in the 1930s, and there's plenty of jazz festivals going around that would dispute that. But okay, maybe rock doesn't sell the way it did in 1985. Okay, maybe.
Nothing does, though.
Nothing does. But was there a thought when you got into the music business of, do I want to do what's in my heart, which is rock and roll, or do you say, okay, I want to be a rock star and I want to sell 1 million albums, so I'm going to go and be techno. How did you sort of come to rock and roll?
I mean, it's just passion. Like if you're not, I don't think you could last if you're not going to follow your passion. Yeah, I think you're just wasting your time. I actually know people who don't, who sort of chase what's, commercially viable at the time, and it just won't work, because that is always changing, right? You have to be, Mick Jagger will say it, like you have to be extremely lucky to be something that fits with what society is sort of looking for. And I think we're sort of on this uptick of rock and roll right now, because that audience has been starved for so long for something that is actually authentic. So we're just glad that it's in line with our release. And yeah, hopefully we can do it for a long time. That'd be nice. That's definitely the objective. But yeah, if you're not following your true musical passion, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah. And honestly, when you see Guns N' Roses have a $1 billion grossing tour, you see Def Leppard doing millions of dollars, you see Metallica, it's like, yeah, okay, rock is dead. Leave me alone.
Yeah, they're the biggest tours that, other than, probably Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift, like they are the biggest tours of the year every year. And, to your point, again, like there's pictures of me on Instagram and stuff, me as like a third grader dressed up as Steven Tyler, for Halloween. If there's any question as to what I wanted to do with my life, that'll clear it up, I think, pretty quickly. It was either going to be a hockey player or a rock star.
That sounds like Twisted Sister. What do you want to do with your life? I want to rock. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what you're doing. Okay. Now you mentioned hockey, which is exciting to us folks in Montreal, and maybe if the Canadians are playing in October, we can go check them out. But you are a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, which is regrettable. But talk to me. Yeah, I'm a Habs fan, but
should be.
I should be. I mean, listen, I grew up, literally my neighbor was Ken Dryden. So.
Oh, no way.
Yes, absolutely. If you ever, well, in fact, in October, if you want, I'll drive you out to Ken Dryden's house because it's right next to my house. But, it was next to my house. He's no longer here. But talk to me just about your passion for hockey and sports, because a lot of folks go, oh, I'm a rock and roller. I don't really like. I know a lot of rock and rollers where you talk football and stuff, or they're like, I just want to play with my guitar. I don't deal with sports. Talk to me about this passion for hockey. How did you sort of develop that? And with that, we lost cell service for a couple of seconds, but let's get right back to Dirty Honey singer Marc LaBelle.
So you had Ken Dryden as a neighbor, huh?
Yes, I did have Ken Dryden, the hockey player, as my neighbor. And what I found amazing about Ken back in the day is for Halloween, when we would go trick-or-treating, instead of giving candy out, he would give Habs pucks or Montreal Canadiens logoed pucks to us or to the kids or whatever. And, of course, back in the 70s, that kind of merchandising or that kind of thing of getting a puck with a logo was really like striking gold. You couldn't really go down to Target or to Walmart and buy a Habs puck. Now you can buy 20 Habs pucks at any old, convenience store. But it was something. And I don't know if you follow baseball, but down the street, a few houses down, we had Bill Stoneman, the pitcher for the Expos. He was the one who threw the first no-hitter.
I have figured he would be an Expos pitcher, of course.
Yeah, so we had an Expos pitcher. We had
getting hockey pucks and balls for Halloween every day.
That's right. Yeah. So we had like the all-star pitcher, the all-star goalie, and we had a quarterback named Joe Barnes who was the starter for the Montreal Alouettes. So yeah, I had like the three kings of Montreal sports down the street, and so
sounded like you had a heavy Halloween trick-or-treat bag.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the kids that would shovel his driveway, well, he would give them sticks, game sticks. And this is like, holy fuck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I wasn't one of them, but I we would talk. The kids would talk. I got a stick from, but yeah, good old.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't it? And I have to say, he moved away when I was about 11 or 12 when he quit the Habs and moved away. And I was working on a TV show for PBS somewhere. God, I must have been about 25 years old. And he was scheduled to be one of the guests because he ended up being a member of Parliament. And he walked in and he goes, "Hey, Mitch LaFon from so-and-so." And I was like, how the hell do you remember what an 11-year-old looks like 15 years later? Like, that's the kind of guy he was. He took the time. He knew who you were. Just a sweetheart. But anyway, talk to me a little about how do you get into being a hockey fan? Because we don't think of rock and rollers as sports fans sometimes, which is silly, but sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up not too far. I grew up in a little town named Schenectady, New York, about 3 hours south of Montreal. So
I've been to Schenectady. I saw Lou Gramm there at Christmas this year, or 2018.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
That's awesome. Was it at the new casino?
No, it wasn't at the casino. It was at the, what was it called? The Palace? Something like that?
The Palace Theater, yeah.
Palace Theater. Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yep.
Super
old theater. It seems that every city has that very old sort of palace type theater. It's pretty cool. But I actually started my hockey career not too far down the road from the Palace Theater at a place called God, I'm totally blanking on the name, but I don't think it's there anymore. But I started when I was 2, played until I was almost right until college, and then I actually went to college and played lacrosse. Played Division I lacrosse down in New York City, and then I've been once I finished my lacrosse career, like the better sport to sort of play sort of recreationally was hockey. So I still play several times a week and go to games all the time. Our manager has Kings season tickets, and I was following the Penguins. The Penguins were in town in New York City, like whether they're playing the Islanders or the Devils or the Rangers. They probably come into town like 10 times a year, so it's pretty easy to keep tabs on them.
Oh, it is. Now, I'll ask you this, and it'll be more of an inside comment because folks won't understand, but Winnipeg Jets or Montreal Canadiens, who would you pick?
Well, I have some ties to the Jets right now. So this guy that we skate with is their assistant coach. My first NHL game ever was at the old Montreal Forum. So they have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, they do. And we'll remind folks that
Patrick Roy play against the Buffalo Sabres. And I was like, God, I must have been like 10 or something.
Wow.
And pretty cool.
That must have been what?
A good first experience.
89, 90, somewhere around there, I guess.
Oh God, no. When did he go to Colorado? It must have been a year before he went to Colorado.
I can't remember, but
I can't remember either. Yeah, it was in with one of our Montreal, weekend hockey trips with the youth hockey team. So
yeah, well, that Albany, Burlington, Vermont, Montreal corridor, a lot of great exchanges. I mean, when I used to play, I used to do those trips too, and it's nice. It's a great way to sort of unite people and get stuff going. But I will remind folks, of course, that the Dirty Honey EP is available now. Do check it out. Head over to Spotify or wherever you get your music from. And Marc, I will say, as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Merci. Yeah, it was great talking to you guys. And we'll be back there, October 1st, right?
Correct, October 1st. And I believe it's the MTELUS. I think that's where you're playing. Let me...
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you've ever been to that venue, but that is such a great venue. There is not a chance that the sound is bad. That venue, to me, and I've been around the world, I think it has some of the best sound ever. It's just great.
Really?
It's great.
I've yet to see a show anywhere in Montreal other than at the festival. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time there. We didn't get to spend much time in the city, and I was telling the boys on the way up, this is probably the prettiest city in North America. It's just so different from anything, even in Canada. Let alone like LA and Miami and New York. Like it's just got its own thing happening there, which I really love. And it's very European. And I really took a liking to Montreal because I went up and visited a couple of years ago, just with a girlfriend. And it's a great town. It's got its own great culture. And
you're gonna love it.
They'll have a good time.
And MTELUS is right by Chinatown, so if you have a chance to walk around, you'll also have a great meal. So it's going to be a great It's going to be a great day, and I'll be happy to show you around. By the way, if you need me to drive you, happy to show you around. And
you want to drive the band around, a couple of degenerates around Montreal. I don't know. The cops might pull you over a little easier, but
I do it all the time. Why not? But
a little bit of aggravation never hurt.
Nah, what the hell? It's all part of rock and roll. Anyway, I unfortunately have another interview in about 4 minutes, but Marc,
no worries.
Merci, absolute pleasure. And folks, do check out the Skillet Alter Bridge Dirty Honey tour, and check out the EP. That tour is going to be spectacular. Miles delivers all the time. John Skillet, awesome. And Dirty Honey, which a lot of people are saying was the band of the weekend or the discovery of the weekend at Heavy Montreal. It's going to be a killer package. Merci, monsieur.
Love it. Thank you.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Rock Talk.